Welcome, young and old. New time, same show. I'm Pom. Joining me is my always guest, Mr. Fazz. Fazz, how are you doing? We've actually got some football in the middle of our show for a change.
Yeah, very good. Very good to be here. You know, a little bit up and about, some cracks starting to show in the four-time NSL legend that is Ange Ball. Cracks are starting to show, but it's really good to be here as per usual. Different time, but that can't be helped. But the show goes on.
Mate, I've had a curse this week, gas and electrical issues.
Mate, between Optus and the electrical issues, mate, I'm surprised we can function day to day at the moment.
I'm beginning to think all my mates are bailing on me with electrical issues. It's the new, it's just tell Pom. We've got power cut. But you did talk about Ange. Obviously, you did mention he's a 4-time NSL winner. Not many people do know. 8-time Dandenong Football Club meat raffle winner as well, which for Pom's watching at home, that's big news because they barbecue over here.
That is big news.
Big news. But we're talking about people under pressure. And Fazz, you wanted to talk about the sack train. We've got a few names there. Eric Ten Hag is there. Gary O'Neill's been mentioned. Even Lumery, Shaun Dux. And we'll give a shout out to John. He's a new follower of the channel. He was a West Ham man, I found out the other day, Fazz.
Love him.
You two will be best mates. But obviously the sack train, we are at that time of year where someone gets sacked, aren't we? And there isn't really a standout candidate, as usually at this time, there would be a lock, wouldn't there? There'd be someone that is probably losing their job in the next 24 hours. But at the moment, there's quite a few on thin ice, but no definitive person.
Yes, well, absolutely. The sack train, choo choo choo. It's just coming into the station as we speak. But you're right. There isn't many who are really standing out. I've got my fingers crossed because honestly, I'm going to go back and I'm going to clip it because I got so much hate when I said the first manager to be sacked was going to be Company. Is that right? Did I say that?
Yeah, you did say that. And
good. Yeah.
Everyone flips because I quote, they play great football.
Yeah. And I remember saying, no, he's the first one gone because you can't play that football in the Premier League with that squad. And to be honest, I reckon that looks the closest to being fact. So I'm fingers crossed that I'm not often right. And you'd say a broken clock is right twice a day, but I'm very, very excited about that one. Wolves look bang in trouble. They've got a good result. Everton look bang in trouble. They've started to come good. Ten Hag, the bloke in the picture, he's probably the one. But again, it depends what their target was, sitting sixth. But Luton's not going to sack their manager. Sheffield are probably close to sacking their manager. To me, and I say this with all understanding that West Ham are about to play them tonight. Notts Forest, I think they're a chance to part ways with Steve Cooper. They're probably dwindling in a position that they probably shouldn't be with the squad that they've got and the amount of money they've spent. So couple more poor results, and I think it could be a race between Steve Cooper and Company.
Do you want to know my left field suggestion? And Lachyjack dropping a bit of banter, Copenhagen. I did like Fazz saying it depends what United's target was this year. I'm pretty sure it wasn't sixth and losing to Copenhagen.
Wow. Well, there you go. He could be in trouble.
You never know. But you know who my left field suggestion is? And I'm going to go as bold. To say, if Villa, actually, when Villa beat Fulham, I reckon Marco Silva gets the chop over Christmas. Huge. Because the 15th now, if they lose, right, they're in dire straits. They're in dire straits because they're just literally 3 points off the bottom 3, you would have expected at the start of the year, Fulham were top 10 easy with the start last year, but they look lost. They look lost.
Yeah, that's a good call. I don't mind it. You kind of, when you're looking at the table and looking for managers to be sacked, you kind of brush over the promoted teams. And I know that's contradictory because I'm talking about Burnley, but they're just diabolical. So yeah, when looking at the table, you kind of Fulham. That's probably where they thought they'd be. But you're right in the sense that with their squad, they do churn through managers. They come out and said that they're sick of being that yo-yo team. They don't want to be like a Norwich, up one year, down the next, up the next, down, up, down, up, down. Which, funnily enough, is the definition of a yo-yo club. Don't know why I had to explain that. But it's a Sunday night. So 16th, they will lose to Villa, I would have thought. Danger signs, especially with the likes of Wolves and Everton. I think they're the two that, I talk about being bigging myself up, talking about Burnley and how shit companies and all that is. But I've got to call a spade a spade. I mean, I sat there and said Wolves and Everton were as good as gone. So, I think they've been the big surprise packets. And a lot of these teams, like your Forest and your Fulhams and your Bournemouth, will be thinking, oh, shit, we kind of banked on being better than them. And they're actually putting a good run of form in. Trouble time for the managers.
Why I say Fulham is we've talked a lot about European football and pretty much the top 8 get in there. And we know we're going to talk about it a bit later in today's show of what the ramifications could be over the Christmas New Year period with the fixture congestion. I do think Fulham, they finished 10th last year. They would have been looking and thinking, Villa have got European football, Brighton have, maybe we can jump. We can jump while they're pissing about playing Legia Warsaw away. We can rest our players and maybe sneak into the top 8. And suddenly, you look at the table, a loss tonight, suddenly you're closer to the bottom than you are 15th, 14th. Like, you're literally in that situation now where you're being sucked into the relegation scrap.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're a team as well who made decisions on managers and made decisions on players and all that, and have kind of found themselves, they probably thought they were a bit better than what they are. But you're right. They one of the things I often mention, and those who watch this will know I say this a lot, and it's which team wants to be the best of the rest, because breaking to that top 6 is very, very difficult. Top 7 now with Newcastle. So who wants to be the best of the rest? And you always throw Fulham into that category of should they be, but teams like Brighton, Villa, West Ham, even though they're falling down the table a little bit, but they're playing lots of European football. Brentford, they're now leaving kind of Fulham in the dust a little bit, and that's a dangerous game to play. And I don't think anyone can put it into words how diabolical getting relegated is. And I know we see lots of times, teams go down, come back up. Leicester look like they're going to come straight back up, and we know what happens. And Sheffield went down, come back. But that's not the case for a lot of teams. It could destroy a club, and especially if you become a yo-yo club, like a Norwich, like Fulham are trying to avoid. One day, it's going to be one too many. One day, it's just going to be, this is one too many relegations. We can't handle it. Fulham, they've got to make a decision. I like Marco Silva for what it's worth, but failed at, was it Watford?
It's a tough one. I know it's harsh. I mean, I would have said if Bournemouth didn't win yesterday, I would have said Bournemouth went left field. They pied off Gary O'Neill after he did remarkable work. They bring in a Spaniard, want to play sexy football. I would say if they'd lost last night, we'd be having that conversation. But I look at Fulham, and they were one of the teams I'd penciled in with everyone else playing Europe. maybe they can go the next step. Maybe they can break in, because I thought it was wide open 4-10, which it still is. I feel now they are a top 10 finish would be remarkable. Another couple of losses, we could be talking relegation fodder, because Luton look hard to beat, which is going to help them. Bournemouth look pretty good at home, and Fulham keep surprising people, and now Everton have really found Dyche ball. If they're too far ahead of you, 3 points is loads in Shaun Dyche ball, isn't it? 3 points ahead, because Dyche isn't going to drop points.
No, that's huge, and you look at. I always look at the goal difference when talking about who my tips are for relegation, and generally you'll see, and it's not rocket science. I'm not Einstein here. It's pretty obvious, but the teams with the worst goal difference tend to go down, regardless of where they're sitting in the table. Like you sometimes see a team sitting, this time of year sitting 12th or 13th with the horrible goal difference. You think, oh, they're all right because they're 12th or 13th, but come after Christmas, they just trundle down the table, because the Christmas period is when you've got to defend, and you've proven you can't defend. So look at teams, Burnley, Sheffield. I'm going to say, they're gone. I'll put it on the record here. They are gone. Both of them are gone. You can't have 12 games in a minus 21 goal difference. Gone. Luton, minus 12. Now that sounds a lot. People think, oh, minus 12. But when you got Bournemouth at minus 16 and Fulham at minus 8, Luton aren't as bad as what people are saying. And people saying, oh, they'll go straight back down. They're a big chance to stay up. They're a massive chance to stay up. If they could just get a few points here, oh, I like it.
Mate, I'm with you. And you know what I look at? Goals as well. Goals for, because you've got to score to win. I think Fulham scoring 9th. They're bottom 3 for goals scored. Luton, do you know what I mean? Very rigid at the back for a bottom 5 side. Yeah. And just that Kenilworth Road, every player doesn't like it. So when that comes to the real danger part of the year, when we get to March, April, that's going to be a shit place to go. Horrible. If you're chasing Europe, if you're chasing a title. They're going to take points off someone in the top 8 3 times in the last 10 games.
Yeah, it's a great man always said, and for AFL fans out there, you'll appreciate this. Great man always said that it's the teams sitting outside the 8 that actually dictate who plays finals. And it's the same with this. It's the teams down the bottom who will dictate who plays Europe and who wins the title, because they're so hard to beat when they're fighting for survival. And fighting for survival, it's like what they say, when a man's got nothing to lose, he's at his most dangerous. And these teams fighting for survival, you do not want to go. You do not want to go down there when you're needing points. Absolutely not.
You know what? My pop used to say, if you want to see a real man, give him everything. And that contradicts what you said, but let's talk about it, because Fred has asked, has the Ange magic gone? Now, question without notice. Question without notice, but I did want to touch on Newcastle last night and Ange. Why I say give a man everything, see what happens. Already, Eddie Howe's lost a couple of games that he probably shouldn't have done. Newcastle sit below United with a brilliant goal difference, it has to be said, but they're 7th at the moment. Ange has lost 2 games, right? This is going to be really interesting, because now we're going to see Tottenham have had everything. Newcastle have got everything in money. I personally don't think Ange's magic's gone. I think just the injuries. This is the Premier League. The best Arsenal were the best side last year for 3/4 of the year. Injuries took hold. Almost impossible. Same with Spurs. It's a shallow squad. But I do want to talk about that. The media are going to start. Ange's played the media, I think, this week. Absolutely brilliant with the VAR. Absolutely nailed it. But as you know, there is a man called Daniel Levy around there. Mm-hmm. And we know that guy is trigger happy. I think he's safe, but I think it will be intriguing should they lose. They've got, 4 games till Christmas now. I reckon if they go at 50%, that is when managers around the world get sacked. Managers, a person I think is a worry for Premier League times is Unai Emery, because he's doing so well. There will be a club that maybe thought they were top 4 that will go, well, look at Unai Emery. We're a bigger name. Let's bring him in. But I think Angie's safe. I think Angie's a class manager. Eddie Howe's the one I worry about, because the media are starting to turn on him. And that's going to be interesting, because we know once the media get up your ass, you're pretty much gone.
Yes. And look, so I'll address both these points. I'll address Tottenham first. The magic dust is not gone yet. If there were any magic dust, it's a simple fact. You said it before. The reason I keep saying why Arsenal cannot and will not win the league again is because their squad depth is terrible. That's the same with Tottenham. The reason they've fallen away is they just got injuries to the wrong people. All right, and that's a reality. We know, and this is what people came for us early on in the season. And again, it was not questioning ever Ange's ability to manage or coach or whatever, but it was more questioning he don't know pressure until you've managed in the Premier League for Tottenham. 2 losses on the spin, they're knocked out of the cup. The moment they're sitting third, the moment they drop outside the top 4, I think Ange is going to be sweating like he's working in a souvlaki shop, because that's when the pressure's on for a team like Tottenham in the Premier League. We're not talking the Scottish League. We're not talking the NSL, the A-League. We're not even talking about taking Australia to the World Cup. We're talking about the Premier League. So he's safe, but he'll get a bit of a sweat on his brow. Eddie Howe, I'm a massive fan. You're a massive fan. Love the guy. All right. But let's play the card. I'll play it right now. What's he done? What's he achieved? But he got sacked by Bournemouth. Was what? Assistant coaching at Man City for a while. He's been given, depends how you look at it, either the plum job or the poison chalice of Newcastle. I tend to lean more towards the poison chalice. I think any team with bulk money, almost impossible to succeed. I think he's gone. I think he's in big trouble.
You know, I feel sorry for him, because, like, you look at his losses, like it's the Arsenal win, sensational, right? Mm-hmm. Arsenal win, sensational. Was it lucky? Elbow in the back, VAR, maybe, but you ride your luck in this game. Then the Wolves game, the Wolves, I think, and shout out to our good friend Chills, he's picked Wolves as his first team. I think a tremendous team to support. But I think Wolves were in trouble 6 weeks ago. They've turned it around, and they're a tough side to beat. I think people forget that the Premier League is no longer a 4-horse race. It really is a 1-horse race. 3 teams who think they can get the big horse. But Man City is Winks. Do you know what I mean? Man City is Winks. It's going to have to be shot in the front leg for it to be caught. And it's going to happen once in 1,000 races. There's 3 teams that potentially could win it. And then outside of that, there's 5 teams that could be 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
So the problem is, though, the mentality is people believe City are beatable. And I'm telling you, what Fazz said, they can field 3 11s. They are not beatable. Pep is going to have to take a blow to the head and someone tell him he's Pepe Le Pew, not Pep Guardiola, for them to drop that title. It ain't happening. I'm a Man United fan. I would rather anyone win it than them, right?
Absolutely.
I'm old school. I hate Man City more than Liverpool. Man City are our main rivals. They're in the same city. I can't stand them, but it's impossible to beat them. Impossible. You have to be 9 out of 10 every game. City can afford to be 7. But that's where I feel for Newcastle. They see the money.
Yeah.
They've had a great win against Arsenal, which, let's be honest, City couldn't do that. suddenly he's under pressure. And he's had injuries. His star signings been put in bloody corner over and under bets on. Like, everything's going wrong. Same with Ange. It happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it happens. And that's what I said, like, it's nothing against Eddie Howe. I just wanted to play the devil's advocate card of he actually hasn't achieved much, so he doesn't have much to fall back on. So if he was a successful trophy-winning manager, it buys you more time. For them, and that's why I said I lean more towards it being a bit of a poison chalice at the moment, because when you are literally playing for second place behind Man City, the amount of money they've got in spending, second place isn't good enough for them. Maybe it is at the moment, whatever. Eventually, once they build the squad, that's fine. Their biggest issue, Newcastle, is simply going to be at what point do they stay the course with their project, or do they panic? Because I think if they sack Eddie Howe, that's the first sign of panic. And before you know it, come January, come summer, they're going to spend squillions and squillions on players, which is not the right way to go about it. But that's how they'll do it.
I stand by what I said pre-season, and some Newcastle fans came for me when I was like, the worst thing that can happen is Newcastle get out of the group and their league form suffers. Now, there's still an outside chance they get out of the Europe, right? They get into, it's a very tight group. I can see that's going to be when the Qataris go, right, this guy can't handle both fronts. And we know it's an incredible skill to manage on three fronts. And I agree with John here. They are beatable, but that leads me to this, right? Our next subject. The Christmas period is right the busiest time. And this is where we'll start to see the good sides with good depth separate from the pretenders. And this is why I say City are unbeatable. Pep is amazing at handling 3-4 competitions, right? He's got a squad that effectively could only play one competition each and still win it. And the big thing for me, Arteta's going to have to play the same 15 players in rotation to catch him. Liverpool, they don't have Europe to worry about. They're playing in a Mickey Mouse version of it. So they're probably a threat to him. But I don't think they're good enough to beat him in the league twice all the time. I feel this is where we're going to see the separation now. We're going to see over this Christmas period, and this is where I pray for Ange, because I agree, Harley's a good mate of mine. He's a good Spurs man. This is where it's tough because people aren't talking. Villa, they're in the conference, Europa Conference, and no offence to Fazz, but English teams are so overpowered. They should win that once they're in the knockout stages.
Absolutely. And I'll just jump in that. If Aston Villa don't win the Conference League, it's a failure. So go on.
Mate, spot on. Liverpool, like we say, do you know what I mean? They have got what have they got to worry about at the moment? They're at what? They've got the Europa League. Do you know what I mean? Liverpool, I think, with Klopp, won't prioritise that if they are top three. I think they will go, we've got to guarantee Champions League football. The Premier League is it. Spurs are in that happy position where Champions League football, for me, is number one for Spurs. Because Spurs can get through this Christmas period into January when the Champions League starts again. In about third, fourth, happy days. Because Champions League football, the way Angie's telling you, I am going to go on record now. They finished top four. Spurs finish second in 2025. If they get Champions League football, because every footballer in Europe will be watching how they play, 9 men, high line, get the ball back, have a go, play to win, will want to play that football. Telling you now, your Dembélés and your players like that, when they get bored of Paris and they want a chance in the Premier League, they're going to jump at it.
Absolutely. And to answer Lachyjack's question about Liverpool top two, absolutely. I'm on record and I'll say Liverpool are the only threat to Man City right now. And I genuinely believe that.
I like that. Yeah. Mate, I actually like that call. And I hate to say it because, I mean, it's it's like having a choice of two men to bang your wife, really. It's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But, I mean, they win tonight against Brentford, 27 points. Suddenly,
Yep.
do you know what I mean? They're 3 points off City, presuming City win. But I think that's going to be interesting. Now, a team I want to talk about, Fazz, and I know John will as well, West Ham.
Yes.
I find West Ham a real exciting thing to talk about because I heard Nolan today, and thank God Kev Nolan spoke a bit of sense. People are getting on Moyes' case, and everywhere I'm reading, it's sack Moyes. Made you European champions. You're cruising in Europe. Do you know what I mean? I think the Premier League table from 14th to 6th, that will get absolutely eradicated with the busy period. As long as you're 2 games away, you can jump up. I think West Ham will finish top 10. I think West Ham will go very deep in Europe. And I personally think you're going to spend big in January. I think you'll spend shrewd in January. I think you'll get the big number 9 that you're lacking in January. And you know who I think that is? Pom's calling it. I reckon Ivan Toney.
Yes.
I reckon Ivan Toney. I reckon Ivan Toney does a Vardy and chooses playing over these pipe dreams of playing at Arsenal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I mean, West Ham's obviously pretty close to my heart, believe it or not.
I've heard.
Look. I mean,
you can't have Harry Maguire anymore, though. He's on fire.
I can understand aspects of it. Like, I've watching West Ham. Our Premier League form is horrible. I'm actually dreading tonight. But I mean, what do you want? Like, we just spoke about Fulham. We're speaking about Newcastle. I mean, what do you want? West Ham are European champions. They're top of their group in Europe again. They're in the quarterfinals of the League Cup. They're not going to get relegated. I mean, what do these West Ham fans want? It is near on impossible to manage on 3 fronts. We said that you can't manage on 3 fronts unless you got a squad like Pep. Well, West Ham don't have a squad like Pep, right? West Ham have West Ham squad. So what do you want? Forget Europe, forget the Cup, and then just finish 7th and 8th every season and play a Europe knockout? Like, what do they want? Because it is starting to reek of this entitlement of, West Ham have played Europe for 3 years in a row, so they deserve this, they deserve that. They sack Moyes and bring in a sexy manager who's going to do the job, do the business. I mean, I'm so at a loss on what West Ham fans actually want. Because to me, I wouldn't change anything for the world. We're in Europe. We're in the quarterfinal of the Cup. Like, what I don't know. Anyway, as far as go.
You know what? It leads us on to this because you just said it. Sexy managers. And this is my bugbear, Fazz. Right? Everyone has it in their head, right? That, okay, we're now 8th in the league. We're now 9th. The only way to go to 6th, 2nd, 1st is resurrect 1970s Brazil, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this. If you put Pep at West Ham and gave him the players he's got and said, play Pep's way, enjoy League One, because they're not the type of players, right?
Hello, Burnley. Hello, Burnley. Has anyone got Burnley on the line?
And this is what fucks me off about football at the moment. It's these celebrity moves. The man in the picture, Wayne Rooney. Birmingham sack a coach. They are 6th in the league. They are now 15th because Wayne Rooney said he wanted to come back to England. And what happened to the old days of Wayne Rooney goes to Leyton Orient for 2 years, gets them out of League Two. Then he goes to Port Vale. He stabilises them from a yo-yo club to a mid-table club. Championship side takes a punt on him. Young, aspiring manager comes in. Chairman gives him a bit of money. He gets the playoffs. Premier League team like Leicester, they get promoted again. They sign Rooney. And then before you know it, Wayne Rooney's Man United manager after 8 years of going through the system. He plays a brand. Everyone now comes out of retirement, goes, right, we're going to play this tick-attacker, gang press, bollocks. But it's all right. I've won 122 caps for my country. I'm qualified. And fuck the club up. Fat Frank Lampard and his shitty suit and trainers. David Moyes, we need more Moyses, more Angies, people who have actually grafted than these Mickey Mouse managers, because they're a good player. Well, that doesn't guarantee they're a good coach. Wayne Rooney should be at some bankrupt club in League Two, getting 10,000 through the door to see their former hero, building the system up, learning his trade, not being gift-horsted these jobs. And that's what pisses me off about Moyes. Yes, I don't think Moyes is a top 4 manager, but unless he knocks you out of Europe in the group stages, sack him when you've got to. He deserves to finish what he started.
You're right. And you said spot on. Moyes is not a top 4 manager, but newsflash, and this hurts to say, but West Ham's not a top 4 club. I mean, we spoke about this, and I mention it Burnley all the time. The best thing that West Ham ever did was stop pretending that they were something that they're not, trying to get Pellegrini in, trying to get all these big, sexy managers in. At the end of the day, you're a dirty, hard-working football club. Don't pretend to be you're not. And that's what Burnley's doing. They're trying to do all this stuff. I could not agree more. And I don't know. This whole signing the name, and that's why I think you've got players who or managers who, like Eddie Howe, like we mentioned before, he's got nothing to fall back on. He needs to win trophies to fall back on. Wayne Rooney and Frank Lampard, they'll fall back on their name alone for what they did at club level and country level for a decade. That doesn't seem fair.
Mate, you know Lampard's going to get another role. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we've seen, like, Graham Potter's struggling to find work. Lampard will get a championship job tomorrow because Lampard scored a worldie at the World Cup once against Germany that was disallowed. Okay, we'll give him a job. And I agree with Terry here. I was listening to something the other day about Derby, and it was like, I think it's a great decision because his mates defend him in the press, his ex-player mates. And they were saying, Wayne came down and he bought training equipment and stuff like that. I'm like, that's irrelevant. Like, Derby weren't exactly a top 4 club, right?
Yeah.
When he was coaching them. And then he went to DC United and we slay Ange because he won an SPFL. He didn't even win anything at DC United.
And Ange has lost 2 games and he's under pressure. And I tell you now, if Ange gets sacked, he won't manage in England again because he's Australian. But Wayne Rooney and Lampard and even Gerrard, they'll all find their way to weasel themselves back in. Michael Carrick, he's watched this space as well. So he was 1 goal off getting Middlesbrough promoted into the Premier League, right? Stuck with them. They're not having the best season of all time. I almost guarantee you he will leave Middlesbrough and come to the Premier League. And I like Michael Carrick, and we'll talk about. I think he's coming up, but
he is.
But what I'm saying is, like, the name as well. Like, he will get a job in the Premier League despite failing with Middlesbrough at the moment, and it's just going to keep happening and happening. Vincent Kompany the same. He'll get sacked by Burnley, and you know what? Actually, watch this space. I just thought about this right now. Eddie Howe out, Vincent Kompany in to Newcastle. It's got it written all over it.
Well, you see, we said that in the preseason show that you can see they're out of the relegation and a top 10 side. Because let's be honest, Vincent Kompany is at Burnley for one reason: to get a top 4 gig in the Premier League.
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't care about Burnley.
He's not there because he likes fucking flat beer or he likes pies and peas. Right?
He didn't even know where Burnley was.
Mate, do you know what I mean? Like, legit, he's there because it is a stepping stone for his career. And, you know, the minute any side in the top 10 says, do you want to come here? He will drop them.
He'll see you later, mate.
Mate, he will drop them quicker than when I'm pissed, I'll drop a kebab.
And that's the craziest thing, because in my opinion, Burnley are the shittest team in the Premier League right now, playing ridiculously rubbish football for the squad they've got. And he will just walk into any team in the top half of the Premier League, and he will, because it's A, Vincent Kompany, and 2, because he plays sexy tiki-taka football. It is bizarre. It is bizarre. And Burnley will get relegated and no one will remember them, and everyone will just be like, hey, whatever happened to that? Nah, gone, because that bloke can't manage in the Premier League. He can't.
And you nailed it there. I was watching Wayne Rooney against Sunderland, right? And they were playing the most top 6 Premier League style of football I've ever seen. Like, you could see Wayne Rooney was literally saying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase how I can play in the Premier League, regardless of the result. Same with Kompany. He's playing a style to say to Brighton, when De Zerbi goes, give me the gig. And it annoys me, because we should be encouraging League 2, League 1 managers, and we should be encouraging Rooney and these players to coach at shit clubs.
It's gross, because I know I said Kompany to Newcastle written all over. You know what it's also got? It's got Kompany to West Ham written all over it as well. I could just feel it.
Because your fans want sexy football.
Yeah, I can just see it. I can honestly just see it. Hopefully David Sullivan's a bit smarter, because he failed with Bilic and he failed with Pellegrini. Went back to Sam Allardyce, went back to David Moyes. Shock. They worked. Surely he doesn't fall for the trap again, but you can just see it. You can just see it happening.
You know what, as well? This leads me to another thing. Do you think chairmen are stupid? Because
yes.
Because you look at Man City and you think, how did they go from Sven-Goran Eriksson and the Taiwanese Prime Minister buying them to now being a conglomerate with Pep? And you look, they kind of went through a progression of you had Sven, then we had Mancini, Pellegrini. Do you know what I mean? They went through the ranks of different tactical nuance, buying them players to suit the system, till they ended up with Pep. And they had a fairly good squad when Pep came in. Pep added the dots, crossed the T's. These chairmen don't realise that you could get West Ham top 4, but it's going to cost you $2 billion to totally get rid of every player on that list. And by the end of it, there's going to be 2 players left, Bowen and Paqueta. And that's it. The rest of them would be gone. Gone. Not good enough.
Absolutely. I'm with you. John Ange to West Ham, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to see Ange there, I think he'd fail at West Ham, because they just don't have the players to play his 9 press that he does. Ange has proven, and I'm going to say this delicately, he's proven to be a bit of a bully. Every team he's managed has probably been the best team in the country. Like, if you go back to his South Melbourne days, they're the biggest club in Oceania. Melbourne Victory is the biggest club in Australia. Celtic, sorry, Pom, one of the biggest clubs in Spain. Spain, fucking Scotland, sorry.
That'll do.
And then the Japanese team he managed in Japan, they were one of the biggest clubs as well. He is a very good manager, but he has benefited a lot from managing the biggest clubs. Does that make sense? So Ange to Tottenham, I thought, interesting move. Ange to West Ham, it'd fail, because I believe he can only survive at a big club.
Talking about that, January, who do we think is spending big in January? Because you mentioned Newcastle. I get a fear that I could see Newcastle pressing the button, and that would scream to me panic. Because if I'm Eddie Howe, I want to save my job. So you're probably having that conversation with your chairman now, going, Andre Isaac's always injured, but he's brilliant. But we probably need another number 9. Tonali evidently can't go 5 minutes without putting $10 on his sports bet, right? You're probably saying to them, I need players, I need depth. But the problem is once they open the checkbook, if you don't fix it in 2 weeks, you're sacked. And
it is interesting.
Like
it's very interesting. I was reading Mark Noble's autobiography, and he spoke about managers, and he said that the pressure only came on West Ham managers when their owners spent money. He said there was no pressure, but once the owners spent money, every weekend, all of a sudden, David Gold, rest his soul, and David Sullivan were in the manager's room, in the players' rooms. What's going on? We've just spent $100 million this summer, and that's at West Ham, right? And that was really stark to read. And Pellegrini literally got the sack because West Ham spent money to finish in the top 8, and they didn't. But it's the same thing. So it is a bit of a catch-22 being at a club who's going to spend money, because as a manager, you're sitting there thinking you almost want to be like, oh, geez, I hope they just keep the squad, because then you've kind of got that excuse at your back. Then worry about it in the summer, where you can actually bring a lot more players in and have a lot more time. Bringing players in January, I mean, it very rarely does it make the difference between relegation and survival. Bringing a player in, it very rarely happens, and very rarely does it happen bringing a player in, making you a top 10 team to a top 4 team. It just doesn't happen. It's more to strengthen your squad. But a team like Newcastle, if they press the button and go bang, 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 and bring in 4 or 5 big name, big money players, it won't fix anything. For one, it just means he's got more players on his books because you need the time, and 2, that spells the end. To me, that's not even a very loud message to Eddie Howe saying, hey, you're on notice here because here's the money.
Well, it's going to be interesting because there's a few names, and that leads us. I've done well at these segues today. I've got to say, proud of myself. But the missing player, and these 2 players are highly anticipated. One of them is Victor Osimhen from Napoli. Very public falling out with the club. Napoli have pretty much absolutely taken. I've never seen a club handle a player as bad, like mocking him on social media, dropping him very publicly, all sorts going on. The players unhappy. I think Osimhen will be in the Premier League, and the other one is Ivan Toney on a worldwide ban because he's another one that loves his 6:45 trap 3 at Cannington at half time. But I think this is an intriguing one here because these are the options that I think Eddie Howe will be faced with if he spends money. Does he go with a superstar striker like Osimhen that is untried in the Premier League? Or does he spend less money and go on a player like Ivan Toney who you know can get goals in the Premier League? I think Osimhen will score, but these are the things here. And I feel like these 2 players here are the difference between being 7th and 4th.
Risky. Osimhen's risky. Untried in the Prem. I'm a massive fan of Ivan Toney. Massive fan. I think he has got megastar written all over him. I don't want Newcastle to sign him because I want West Ham to sign him, but I think he's bigger. He's bigger than West Ham. These 2 players. I know what I mentioned before about signing a player won't make a difference for a lot of things. But if you can sign a striker who can bang in 10 goals in the second half of the year, holy shit, that's massive. And these 2 can do that.
It'll be interesting because, like, where would Osimhen go? Like, we've got Matt Gondolfo here. Do you know what I mean? Talking about Liverpool. Will their chairman go in there? I mean, I think Liverpool will spend because they'll want to cement that top 4, go for the title. I mean, Osimhen, I think he's a massive upgrade on Núñez. But then again, if I was Liverpool, Tony's going to cost probably half of Osimhen. He's 15 goals. He knows where the onion bag is.
Yeah.
Which would you prefer?
Tony. Osimhen. Yeah. I don't know. I actually, you take one and I'll take the other. But if for the immediate right this second, right now, Ivan Toney. Just because you know what he can do and what he will do. But geez, Osimhen, he'd be great. He's gonna be great too. But I'd just 51% leaning towards Ivan Toney.
You know, for United, I'd probably want Tony because I just feel like we need a goal scorer, an out-and-out goal scorer. But I do get the feeling, call me crazy, Osimhen could be, I think he could have a Haaland impact.
Ooh,
because he's strong, aerially good. I feel like if you're an Arsenal, if you're a Newcastle, even a Spurs, no one's talked about them. Spurs have got money to spend. Osimhen suddenly allows Son to go back out wide, which I think he's better at. Him playing centrally, being fed by Maddison when he comes back in 8 weeks. Osimhen would bang them because I actually would say Maddison is probably the tier below Kevin De Bruyne through balls. And what have we seen? KDB's gone. Haaland isn't as potent. I think Maddison feeding Osimhen 20 goals a year.
That's tasty. That is tasty. Yeah. Like I said, they're both be brilliant. I don't know much about Ivan Toney's personality or as a person. He appears, and I want to say that very delicately, he appears to be a certain level of, let's say, Mario Balotelli arrogance. But if this young man, if he has any sense of a point to prove, because it could go one or two ways, in my opinion. Getting Ivan Toney could also go the other way. Blows up, doesn't care, he's got his millions in the bank, and he could just fade away into nothingness after what's happened. Or it goes I've got a point to prove. I want to be England's main man at the next World Cup. I want to be this, I want to be that. He could be an incredible, incredible signing for anyone in January. And when does his ban lift? It is in January, 17th. Isn't it? Yeah.
17th of Jan.
Mate, there should be 19 clubs lining up for him in the Premier League. And Brentford should be doing everything they can to keep him, might I add.
Mate, you'd imagine so. Where do we think Osimhen and Toney end up? So pretty much both of them are looking to go. Where do we think we'll go? Because that's a great point Matt makes. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Homegrown player, so that helps Ivan Toney. But both are pretty much odds on by the bookies to leave in January. Where do we think they end up?
I reckon just talking Premier League, because I think there's a chance Osimhen goes elsewhere. But if we're just limiting to the Premier League, I reckon Toney ends up at Chelsea. And I reckon Osimhen ends up at Newcastle. I reckon that'll happen. Ivan Toney to Chelsea, Osimhen to Newcastle.
You know what?
Spurs won't spend the money. Spurs won't spend the money.
I've got a feeling Toney to Arsenal.
Oh, gross. But yeah, I can see
Osimhen is coming to United.
I wouldn't mind that. I like it.
I've got a feeling, just looking between the lines, January, United, to answer your mate's question, Terry, I think United spend big, and I think that's the end of Ten Hag. I think United panic, put 100 in. They do what they did last year, spend next year's budget now, see Osimhen, it gives us time. And I reckon it is the death rattle for Eric Ten Disaster.
I love it. And Ivan Toney at Arsenal would be filthy. It would be filthy. He'd do so well there. I can just see him at Chelsea. I just think they spend money.
It'd be interesting. I
think. Sorry, I just want to say one thing. I think a lot of people got to remember Arsenal got no money left either. They've come out and said that their budget is skin. They spent all their money on Declan Rice.
You know what? If I was Arsenal, though, I really like Eddie Nketiah.
Mate. I'm telling you now, if Ivan Toney went to Arsenal, I tell you what, there'd be 19 clubs going to Nketiah and saying, even if it's on a loan, come back the other way or whatever. But I just don't think Arsenal are going to get in a bidding war for Ivan Toney because they just don't have the money. They spent squillions. And I know that's so did Chelsea, but Chelsea always spend money. Arsenal aren't notorious for spending big money. And neither are Spurs. That's why I just feel like Chelsea are the team for Ivan Toney, especially if it becomes a bidding war with another club. But I like the Osimhen to United.
I've got a feeling that Ramsdale leaves though in January.
Yes, that's a good call as well. That'd bank him some coin. That's a very good call.
I could see Brentford. I could see them. Ramsdale going to Brentford in a part exchange.
Okay. Could you imagine? Oh mate, that's a football manager deal.
He has to. He has to though because he's only shout for the England job he's playing.
No, it's true. And Chris Lang 100%. Like Arsenal will sell a couple of players in January, though I think they've got to. Ramsdale being one of them. And being who mentioned before, Matt about being an England player. Aaron Ramsdale should net them big money in January because there'll be English teams who want to fill that quota. I think when you're doing your squad, I know this is a bit off topic, but how teams roll with two international goalkeepers, surely at least one of your players has to be homegrown, like your goalkeepers. It's the easiest position to cover, your backup goalkeeper. I mean, how teams don't go for an English goalkeeper is beyond me. Yes, Terry, you're in my happy anniversary too, Terry, by the way. Happy anniversary. I saw that today.
Happy anniversary, buddy. Tony to Chelsea, you've heard it here first. And we finish with, we like to showcase an unpopular footballer. And one of my favourites, Michael Carrick. Tell you what, we're big on this show on giving plaudits to players that aren't sexy, that aren't in the press all the time. And Michael Carrick was probably the unsexiest footballer ever. He was just a lazy, doing his job all the time, passing sideways, letting the other players play. And for me, we need more players like Michael Carrick and people, Mark Noble, players like that who work hard, letting other players take the plaudits for their hard work.
I didn't listen to a word you just said because I just noticed he's got a United shirt on in that little picture. He's a West Ham legend, my friend. Never forget where you start. Never forget where you start. All jokes aside, just spot on. The forgotten men, the blokes who do the dirty work behind the ball that allows the sexy players to win all the plaudits. What they say, you know, the sexiness sells the paper, sells the membership, but it's these types of players that win trophies. And like you said, I'm glad you threw in a bit of Mark Noble in there because, in my opinion, he's one of the most underrated players of all time just for what he did because he wasn't sexy about it. But yeah, Michael Carrick, just an incredible dogged player who I think it wouldn't matter what shirt he had on. I reckon you could call Michael Carrick up today and say, hey, come down to the local, play the thirds Veterans League, and he would play the same way as what he did when he was at United because that's just the type of player, that animal mentality and proper leadership, knowing I'll do my job and allow them to get all the plaudits and happily sit in the rooms. And that's why I think he will make a good manager as the years go on, but just an incredible footballer who, West Ham legend, okay at United, I suppose. But
did win everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Love him.
Mate.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny because when you speak to Real Madrid, one of their favorite, they did a poll, favorite player of the noughties, which you've got to think, if you're a Real Madrid fan, they've had quite a few in the noughties. But Claude Makelele was in the top 10 of that vote. And that goes to show they always appreciate them grafters. They called him the engine. Do you know what I mean? And he was playing with Zidane. Do you know what I mean? The R9, proper Ronaldo, real Ronaldo, playing with actual footballers that are synonymous with iconicness. And you can't build a team. Me and Fazz say this all the time. If you built the best 11 players in the world, you'd need at least 2 Michael Carricks for it to work. Absolutely. If you just put the best players there, you get battered.
And we did that a month or so ago, didn't we? When we did our best 11 and we had those conversations. It's a reason why that golden generation in England, when you're trying to play Lampard and Gerrard in the same team every time, it just simply didn't work because you need these players. You can't, for footy fans out there, GWS are a perfect example. You can't have a team full of superstars. It just simply doesn't work. Real Madrid proved that time and time again. They talk about the Galacticos, when Beckham went over there and all that, but the forgotten players behind those the front four, they're the ones that win the trophies. And I would say, like I said, time and time again, Cristiano Ronaldo, super player, obviously, and he'll win you, sponsorships and medals and all that, and memberships. But Carricks are the ones who, as they say, Stoke on a Tuesday evening gets the business done week in, week out, no matter who it is.
You know what? It's forgotten about as well, because I was watching United last night usurp the juggernauts that are Luton Town in a well thought. But I was watching the players that are playing that behind the ball role, Christian Eriksen, McTominay last night. And the big thing that stands out is Michael Carrick was selfless. He was happy not to touch the ball for 48 minutes. He'd stay in his position and be like, if we lose possession, I'm here. Where you watch Eriksen, you watch McTominay, they want to get involved. And then you look at the top teams in the league. I'm going to pick on Arsenal here. Last year, they didn't have a Declan Rice who is selfless, who is like, you know what, fuck it. I'm happy to sit in the hole and let you guys play with the ball. If you lose possession, I'm here. And the one no one talks about City, they're Michael Carrick, Rodri, who for me, when anyone ever says to me, which player would you have from City, 9 times out of 10, I say Rodri. I'm like, 100 all day, Rodri. Before Haaland, before fucking Ruben Dias, I'd take Rodri because that guy just does his job and does it better than anyone else.
Gives you that 7, 8 out of 10 every single week. Every single game, sometimes 3 times a week, depending on how many games you got. Now, it's interesting to say about the Declan Rice one, because I think he's a perfect example of trying to pretend you're something you're not. And Declan Rice had a real down patch in his... it's when he broke into the England squad and all the commentary around him was he doesn't score enough goals. He doesn't get forward enough. He just sits in front of the back four and fills a hole. It's not good enough. So then the following start to the season of West Ham, it's like Moyes tried to say, well, Dec, we want to do the best by you. So he put him up the ground a bit, put Souček behind, and it just fell to pieces. Absolutely fell to pieces. Moyes nearly lost his job over it, by the way, just to get Declan Rice up the ground. Now Declan's gone to Arsenal, 105 million, well documented. The moment he goes back to realizing he can be the greatest player in the world at CDM, just in front of the back four. The moment he goes back to that, happy days for him. Until he does, he's just going to be, and I mean this with all respect because I love him, he's just a run-of-the-mill midfielder at the moment. Getting forward, he scored a goal here and there, but he needs to go back to that Michael Carrick role. Because, Deck, you, as I said, you can win Arsenal a trophy by playing that role. You won't win Arsenal a trophy playing a central midfielder, box to box, trying to get up in the box, whatever. You will win Arsenal a trophy sitting in front of the back four. That's a fact. Because he's the best in the world at it, maybe behind Rodri. But again, media talks. England talks. England. You want to get in the England squad? You can't just be a sit in front of the back four midfielder. Why not?
You know what I think saved his career at England? Because I remember that noise a couple of years ago. Is Bellingham. I think people need to realise not Bellinghams are as rare as rocking horse shit. Good CDMs are equally as rare. You just don't notice them. Do you know what I mean? And I always say this. People talk about Casemiro, and United fans always say this to me. Doesn't score goals.
Yep.
He doesn't really pass the ball. You don't really notice him, but we paid 90 million. I'm like, good, because you should never notice your CDM if he does his job properly. If he's done his job properly, you fucking couldn't even tell you if he played because he's not made a mistake. And that's all you need. Someone that just sits in front of his back four and cleans it up and gives it to someone who can play football. And Michael Carrick, for me, one of the best to ever do it.
And that's the point. The point you're making. Declan Rice needs to decide whether in 20 years' time he wants two blokes like us sitting here talking about Declan Rice being one of the greatest CDMs of all time, or does he want us in 20 years' time say, hey, remember when Arsenal spunked 105 million on Declan Rice and tried to play him as an attacking midfielder? What a joke. So that's what it's all about. That's it. I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious. Michael Carrick should be the poster boy for all these players. For all these players. If you are not blessed with pace, if you are not blessed with, tricky feet and crossing ability, whatever, if you've got a big body and a determined attitude, just copy Michael Carrick and you could make yourself a legend.
Mate, I'm with you. And we see it in all sports. We see it in football over in this country. Oh, George Hewitt doesn't kick goals. Rah. Tell you what, keep your goals. Stop goals going in. If you do that, makes the game a lot easier. But I agree.
Yeah,
he's kind of playing that Xhaka role, and you kind of want him just that CDM.
Yes, yeah, and that's spot on. And I know a lot of it is tongue in cheek and mucking around, but I'm dead serious. Like it's not me. I'll stop shit canning Arsenal when they win the Premier League because that's what they set out to do. They spent 105 million on a CDM to win the Premier League. Till they do that, they're open slather, in my opinion. And Xhaka leaving, I think, has caused more issues than what Arsenal, some fans, Chris is spot on here, are not wanting to admit.
More Michael Carricks, and we'll continue on this show giving love to the unloved because you can keep your Haalands, you can keep your fucking Henrys. We want Michael Carrick back. We want Michael Carrick back.
Yeah. Next time, it might
time for chat. Thank you very much.
I was going to say, next time we might talk about an unloved left back or something. Just
Yeah, we'll bring a left back. We'll bring a left back into play. Or maybe a right back. We'll bring Ben Johnson in.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Cafe. But thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to Fazz. We'll be back normal time next week, Friday. And we'll see you all then. Thank you very much, everyone.
Enjoy your week. Bye.